Hey everyone, and welcome back for episode 2 of the Jasmine Ortiz show. It was such an honor to be able to debut my very first podcast ever last week on iHeartRadio, 99.7 The Heat Miami. Thank you so much to everyone who tuned in. Honestly, it means the world to me. It means the world to my co-host, Jordi Polycarpe. We put a lot of love and a lot of time into making these episodes for you, and we're going to keep doing it because we got to keep it Jasmine, right? We have a lot more to talk about with you guys today. The topic of the week for us today is going to be higher education and non-traditional career paths. In addition to that, we're going to talk a lot about independent artists, marketing, and how social media plays a role into that. So let's get straight into it. I want to actually talk about some current events that intertwine with what our current topic is. So TikTok has a lot of viral trends that happen basically on a day-to-day or weekly basis. I know that something that happened recently was the Madison Beer song going viral. I actually had a viral TikTok that got 300,000 views talking about this trend, about the Make You Mine song. Essentially, there are incentives for certain individual creators on TikTok to use specific songs and basically work with the artists that are providing those incentives. Make You Mine happened to have a financial incentive to be used. However, the trend that actually resulted from this was not what the incentive was about. The incentive wanted people to kind of use a glam bot, makeup or outfit kind of highlight for the trend. But what ended up happening is people instead went viral for posting, oh, I would have bodied this trend if I wasn't a mom, or I would have bodied this trend if I was 10 years younger. And then everyone in the comments was like, what is this trend? It was super confusing. No one knew what was going on. If you want a more in-depth look at that, check out the TikTok I made at Iamjasmineortiz. But beyond that, I wanted to talk about with Jordi, like what your thoughts are regarding virality on TikTok and how to kind of capture that almost, lightning in a bottle effect.
Yeah.
How do you kind of tap into that?
It's really interesting to see like what labels and managers try to push as like, we want people to pay attention to this versus what actually ends up being seen. Because I think that the algorithm to a certain extent has a mind of its own. Like, I think we try to program it with different things and we try to get people to care about videos and songs in very particular ways. But I think the fans always end up making things a lot more organic. And then sometimes that makes it harder for the labels and artists to actually market because then they have to relearn their demographic, basically.
And another element to this altogether is a celebrity rebrand. So someone that we all know and love for a very long time, JoJo Siwa. We know her as the girl with a huge bow in her hair, rainbows, sparkly, butterflies, unicorns.
Gay icon.
Exactly. Gay icon from, more than 15 years ago when she started out. Now she has recently undergone a huge rebrand to basically mark the transition out of her childhood brand and into her adult one. This honestly was a bit overdue because she is already, I think, 21. So I know that she has been strategically planning this for a long time and kind of waiting for the right moment. She basically issued a warning on her social media. This content is no longer for children. Please remove your children if they're following me. Like, this is adult content now. Honestly, more power to her because a lot of the time other artists that have gone through this period, a la Miley Cyrus, have, just kind of done it and not really said anything to fans about a warning or a precursor. So I think, JoJo Siwa had the right idea with that. But let's talk about the actual music. So I don't know if you've heard it, Jordi, but
I've only seen the like duets from other people. I still to this day have not actually watched the video. Only seen the reactions.
Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of things going on here. The song Karma, first of all, has this lyric that says, karma is a bee, I should have known better, something like that. So I think JoJo here is going for the shock value factor of someone who was a known child-friendly star using profanity. I mean, I think that's an obvious marketing ploy right there. The visuals are extremely confusing for me. She has this almost Kiss-esque rock star, black, geometric eye makeup look coupled with rhinestones in her hair and then like a shaved, gelled up mohawk that's blonde and black. It just feels like there's not much direction here with this rebrand. In her personal life, she's been posting a lot of content about being openly gay, about her dating life, kind of almost casual, less femme. She's had this very cool transition in her personal style, but then it feels in the music video, we're kind of reverting back to this weird adultified glam look that still feels a bit childlike to me. So I don't know if you have any takes on this. It's very specific.
I can tell a lot of like money went into the production of it, and it's like automatically very gay and automatically like very, yeah, that like Kiss inspired makeup. So it's interesting that like I'm glad that she did the disclaimer of like get your kids out of here because this is no longer for them. I think rebranding from like child stars is always really interesting. I don't even know if I have an opinion on it. I just want to watch. I just want to see.
I think so. What people are saying mostly, what the reaction has been, is that it almost feels inauthentic to who she is and what her brand has always been.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than moving into this new adult, more mature chapter, it feels like she's trying to pretend to be something that she's not.
Yeah. It looks maybe overproduced.
A bit overproduced, and also the outfits feel dated to me.
Mm-hmm.
They feel like Lady Gaga circa 2008 paparazzi, or like dramatic shoulder pads, football-esque outfits, the bodysuits, the makeup, the gems. It doesn't feel like it's anything new or cutting edge. It almost feels like she's trying to adopt looks that she's seen adults do in the past.
Yeah. It also feels like I don't know how much decision making she actually had in it, because she's always had a team and she's always had like managers and things like that. So it makes me wonder how much of it is like she was like, I need to rebrand, like, and then they're like,
I feel like she had too many decisions.
You think
that she made in this? I think this is her.
Okay.
I think this is I kind of understand this from a different perspective. Like, I've been making music for a really long time. I've been releasing music professionally since I was 16. You know, as you grow and evolve, your style changes. And if you already began at point A, it is extremely hard to find a point B that feels comfortable and authentic for you. It took me all of college to really find that point B that I was happy with, honestly. So I think right now she's in that interim phase where it's like she doesn't know who she is, what she wants to do, what her music or brand should look like, because all her life it's been dictated to her that she has to look like this child, basically, and has to have this very specific branding. So I think she's confused. I think it's a bit misguided. I think there could have been a more purposeful way to make this transition for her. But I also understand that maybe she just wants to go for shock value because she knows that that's what's going to like really push this to the forefront of pop culture right now.
I get that.
I want to go into another topic real quick. Some artist marketing that has been working on social media. I know, Jordi, you wanted to touch upon this a bit, specifically with different artists that you've seen on TikTok.
Yeah.
That has been working.
So I think off of that, like from the JoJo Siwa conversation, I don't know how much that's working in an authentic way. I do think there are artists that are doing a really good job of it right now. In particular, Artemis is one artist who I found on TikTok. He has been, and especially in terms of myself trying to look for what kind of marketing is working right now, I've already seen his following pretty much skyrocket in maybe a month or two. Right now, he's got 17 million listeners on Spotify. And his top ones are the ones that I've seen coming across my page on TikTok. But pretty much all of these are from most of his songs that I've seen are like 2022 on. But these ones in particular, the most recent, he just started putting them out. His marketing style is very much the kind where you can't tell it's him talking about the song until you like really pay attention. And I think that's a really smart tactic because as fans and people consuming content, I think people are tired of seeing artists promote themselves, which sucks because especially as an independent artist, nobody else is going to do it for you. It's a little bit, and kind of going back to the conversation of like when labels are pushing the algorithm and trying to like come up with different ways to market and things like that. It makes it a lot harder for independent artists to grow in organic ways and try to find a space for themselves in the market. But I think that his marketing of just kind of like in his space, like almost like singing his words to the camera, but the caption will be something like POV, you just found like this like super toxic song or something like that. Like every caption I've seen, I read it first, I listen to the song, and I see him, and then I look at his name to see that he's actually the one who posted it. And it takes me a couple seconds, but my first reaction is I relate to the caption, and two, oh, this is a really good song. Nothing else matters after that. I think as a consumer,
Yeah.
Once you're there, you're hooked. And I think he's done a really great job of that. And it's kind of like more like lyric driven as well. He always has the lyrics on screen. That way it gives you something else to pay attention to. But also that's what's really driving it. Like the one that I saw was they're like very toxic but relatable. And they have just enough like wow factor to catch you in that. And I think we're in such a like our generation loves toxicity and loves like a little bit of that like toxic content because we all love like Brent Faiyaz and things like that, and I think that he's playing into that very much in like a pop way. But I think it's really it's been interesting to see.
And I've seen a couple of our friends who are independent artists also do something similar, like POV, you just found your favorite like XYZ artist and it's like their song that they're singing. I think that's a clever way to gain someone's attention for the quality of the music primarily, instead of saying like, please, sir, please listen to my new song. And I mean, I've done a bit of both, but I think it's all about balance and finding what works for your audience.
100%. I think the other artist that I found, her name is Haley Knox. She also, I'm obsessed with right now. Or actually, it's been maybe a couple of years since I first found her, but she's kind of been in and out of my For You page for a while. Her music has significantly less views on it, but I do think she does a really good job of feeling organic and authentic. The videos I've seen were always, and especially in 2020 era, COVID era, like her outside, nobody around, just with her microphone and her headphones and her laptop, singing the song live. And from what I've seen, I do think she is actually doing it live, because I can always tell little differences of like if she's done it multiple times, she'll add like different kinds of runs or like seeing her breathe while she's doing it. So it's been interesting to see how much like instead of lyric driven content or like super specific flashy visuals, she's so relaxed, but her runs are amazing. It feels relaxed and it feels honest and it feels vulnerable, but it's like she doesn't even have to try. Like she can just wear her sweatpants and a hoodie and things like that. And that's what hooks you into. And I'm like, I need to find out who this girl is. And that's, I feel like the difference between the two. Like for her, I'm just so interested and I want to know more because she's so chill. And I think she's done a great job with her marketing. I think she definitely deserves her flowers.
I totally agree. Like when you have someone that you can see blatantly has that raw talent, it definitely draws you in immediately. I think that can easily set someone apart from really what's been oversaturating the social media music market. You hear a lot of overproduced songs, you hear a lot of auto-tune, you hear a lot of lack of musicianship almost. And with someone like Haley, you definitely can bring that back into the equation, which is really cool. So I did look it up. Artemis is signed to a smaller alternative label, 10,000 Projects. And then Haley is actually signed with S-Curve Records. So I'm not familiar with either of those. They're very clearly smaller indie labels, which I think is also really cool. That's another element of being independent in the industry, that, you know, there are options to sign to smaller labels, and clearly they have been able to help both of them out a lot in their journey. I would just want to move into a quick little break before we go into our next segment. We're moving into probably my favorite segment on the show, my Uncut Diamond segment. In this part of our show, we're going to be highlighting an up-and-coming emerging artist with immense talent every week who has something very specific to share through their artistry. This week, we have the one and only, extremely talented R&B singer and songwriter Marley. Marley was actually a peer of Jordi and I and a great friend at Frost School of Music at University of Miami. We all graduated together in 2022. So today we're going to be talking about her journey as an independent artist, as well as our shared experiences with higher education and non-traditional career paths. So hey Marley, welcome onto the show. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so honored and sending all the love and praises back your way and Jordi's way as well.
Yeah, we're really.
So Marley, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Marley. I'm a pop R&B artist. I come from Houston, Texas. Currently, I'm living in Austin, the music capital of Texas as well. And I've only released 3 singles and 1 music video, but I feel like I'm on the rise.
Excellent, Marley. And how can we find you on social media?
I am at Marley Official on Instagram and at Marley on TikTok. My name is spelled Marlei. So typically it'll come up pretty quickly because of the change in spelling, and I post pretty often on both.
Awesome. So now Jordi and I really want to get into who you are as an artist and what drives you to make your music. So first of all, we heard a little bit about where you're from. I know you grew up in Texas, similar to Beyonce, Queen Bee. I love that. But what is your story and how did you get into music?
Well, I started off actually with piano. Piano was my first love. I picked it up at age 5, and my mom got me into lessons. And I always listened to gospel music in the car with my family in the mornings, and I would sing with them. I'd try and harmonize with them before I even knew what harmonies were. And that kind of blossomed my love for singing. I auditioned for my first solo in music class in 2nd grade, got it somehow, and I just continued on from there. It was an instant love at first sight for me. I did choir from 6th grade to 12th grade, and after doing music for so long, I finally decided that this would be the career I chose. It was the only thing I could envision myself doing. And I got full support from my mother, and I really appreciated that. She encouraged me to try and hone my skills more in community college. So I did that for 2 years, and I did a cappella groups, I did opera, I did jazz, and I did basic pop. And after that, I auditioned for Frost, and I somehow got in on originals.
Somehow.
Yes,
so
no,
more
it's because
credit
of the
than
talent, girl. The
You
talent.
deserve that.
It's funny because I didn't start writing original music or messing around with Logic until I was 18. So I felt like I didn't have enough to go off of. But after auditioning and meeting every other person who was there, I knew that that was where I was meant to be. It all really connected, it all really clicked. And I feel like I've finally found the version of myself that I long to be. It feels authentic to me. And it's beautiful being able to kind of sit in that and know that I know what I want to do with my life. Yeah.
I love
That's
that.
so special.
You're so
And
sweet.
I feel like Frost did that for a lot of us too. I feel like a lot of us ended up finding space there. That's awesome.
I really feel like you brought a unique energy and a fresh energy that was very needed in our class when you arrived at Frost, because there weren't a lot of girls kind of doing the pop R&B thing that the 3 of us do, all in our own very distinct ways.
Yes.
And I loved just the excitement and positivity and camaraderie that you brought to the program. So that was really amazing.
And especially there weren't that many women of color in particular also in our program. And having another person, I was like, thank God.
It's so cool.
Me and Nyla were like, we needed you.
No, I wish I'd met y'all sooner. I met y'all so late in the stage of that because of COVID. And I at first when I got there, I was like, is anybody else doing this? Because I didn't know how big this singer-songwriter indie thing was until I got to Frost and even jazz. And when I got a chance to meet both of you at different points, but once I got a chance to meet both of you, I was super inspired. Y'all kind of kept me going, not in a competitive way, but more so in a, oh my God, okay, we're all doing it. We're all in this together and we all will be successful. That just, chef's kiss.
We just want to see you win. There's
100%.
I want to see win. You're definitely
Same.
up there.
We're just literally watching and it's like, yes, I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen for you. That's a beautiful thing.
And that's why this community with the show is so important to me too. And it was an honor to be able to co-host with Jordi, and the fact that she wanted to come on here and do that. I just love being able to give my friends this opportunity to speak out about their music, because it's something that matters so much to all of us.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. We deserve it.
We do. Yes.
Yeah. Can I also ask you, like, on a little bit more of your music, what inspires you as you're creating or in general?
I'm going to say what inspires me is first off, my role models in the industry, they all inspire me heavily. I think there's beauty in diversity. Yeah, we do have our Queen Bee, we have Ariana Grande, we have Tori Kelly, we have like our really big powerhouses, but I also kind of like to look to K-pop and old school R&B and jazz, singer-songwriters from country, especially now that I've been back in Texas now. And watching how people evoke certain emotions through their songwriting and their music, and not even just their music, but their videos as well. When I feel a strong emotion from a song, or I feel a melodic line that makes me get all excited, or I have to replay it, those are the moments that inspire me to create. But not just looking at other people, also looking at memories of experiences I've had that I know a lot of people can relate to. Difficult moments, mental health with depression, anxiety, stress, lost love, breakups, all of those experiences I feel like can be shared in a way that kind of brings everybody together. And that's what music is for. So my own nostalgic experiences, as well as the feelings from the music I like to listen to, both kind of come together to inspire me to write the music that I create now.
Do you feel like there's one person in your life who you feel like inspires you the most?
Yes, it is. And I have mixed feelings about saying this right now because of all the stuff that's been going on scandal wise. But for the longest, it's been Ariana Grande. And she's released so much music where it's been transparency. Like, we look into her life so easily. And I like that she's able to divulge so much information, mostly through music. And she's gone through different phases, kind of genre wise. I'm not in love with every song. Obviously, I don't think everything one can create is perfect. Everyone vibes with something different. But she has heavily influenced my music the most, for sure. Yeah.
I love Ariana. We actually talked a lot about her in last week's episode, surrounding a little bit of the controversy, her album in general, and just her career as an artist. I find her to be one of my most favorite artists and a huge inspiration for me genre-wise too, so I definitely see where you're coming from. Another question that I want to ask you is about a little bit about what your greatest skill set is as an artist, what you feel that is for you, and how you got to this point with it.
Oh, okay. This one's a fun one because I've really got a chance to look into it lately. So I think when I was younger, my biggest skill set was harmony. I loved creating harmonies when I was a child. I'd listen to my friends sing and then I'd try and come up with something on top, still not knowing what harmony was until like middle school. So I definitely think that's the base of my skill set. Second, I think it's my ear. I don't know if it's from all the sites, but I feel like I have a strong ear when it comes to putting things together that kind of evoke, I'm going to say, excitement or aha moments in songs. I love doing that. That's something that's very meaningful to me. And the last thing that I feel like is the kind of the epitome of my triangle of skill sets is performance. I didn't think I was a good performer. I actually auditioned for, I think it was America's Got Talent, and I gotten pretty far in my audition. And the producer looked at me and he was like, "You need to work on your performance. I need you to sell this to me more." And I took that and I ran. And I really focused on using facial expressions, strong, like, I'm not going to say rigid body movements, but strong kind of energy in my performance, whether that be dance or just standing in front of a mic. And now, as my job, I do weddings, I sing. I can see the result of how my performances affect people. And I definitely think that's what draw people in to what I'm trying to tell them when I'm singing.
That's excellent. And I really feel that the growth you've had in your performance technique shines through immensely in your latest music video for Sheesh, which we're going to show a little bit of later. I adore this look on you. I love the powerhouse, like femme fatale, amazing choreography, amazing makeup, amazing wardrobe. This is just so who I envision you as a pop star. And it feels like all the work that you've put into it coming up to this point has really cultivated in this video. So it's exciting to see you talk about that and a little bit of what your process was like.
Oh, thank you.
It was really great to see.
Oh, much appreciated. I was going to say, I feel like at Frost, I had limited opportunities to perform or really sing for you all, especially in a time when we were kind of holed up. I wasn't warming up enough. My voice wasn't there back then. So like being able to fully kind of get back into my element and perform the way I wanted to was such an amazing experience. And I'm so happy that that came through for you all. It made me happy. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Can I ask you, in terms of, so like trying to get your music out there, and you did the video and everything, creating content or like trying to market yourself, what keeps you motivated to do that? If you are motivated to do that, like, and have you felt any kind of like burnout? We've talked about that a lot in terms of the industry, like feeling like we have to be content creators. What has that been like for you?
It has been, I'm going to be so transparent right now. It has been very insane. More so on the nightmarish side. I think what really motivates me to post is my want for my career to go in a certain line, a certain area. And I know that I am the only one pushing me. When you have to forge your own path as an independent artist, it all falls on you. So it's important to know where you need to go because it's not laid out for us. So I kind of took social media as my path. And I actually took some classes with the company. I was doing the monthly where we meet and we talk about music and they give us skills and like insight on like how to post, and they bring in influencers. And it was very helpful because it helped me understand what worked and what didn't. I think the consistency thing is more so just the legwork that's needed to garner fans. I really think that's the main way to go. If you're inconsistent, people don't see you enough to kind of be engaged with your story, who you are, and what you're trying to show them. And there's so many people, like the market is oversaturated. So you have to stand out in a certain way. You have to understand your brand. You have to have a hook. You have to know exactly what to say and how long you need to say it. And you have to be able to show the best parts of your talent. And that means you have to put on 10 different hats, make time if you don't have a day job, and still properly create enough content to curate maybe 5 to 7 or even more videos a week. And that is so much. It is so much. So what keeps me going is the feedback I get. It really is the feedback. People will tell me they've seen me posting and it makes me feel like my work isn't for nothing. And I've also gotten a chance to be able to garner a couple of fans, and they are the sweetest, most inspirational and kind people. And I feel like now I'm not just posting for me or for just future fans, I'm posting for them. And that makes me feel a sense of pride in my work, and it pushes me to keep going.
I love that.
That's beautiful.
That's so important to have something driving you. That isn't, just the passion and love that we have for music. Obviously, that's number one. But it's really cool that you've grown a bit of a fan base and that you have this inspiration from them, because that is so, paramount to actually finding the energy inside yourself to keep going with it. I know for myself, this podcast has actually given me a really great outlet to feel less of the frustration of being a content creator as well as an artist, because it feels like I have a chance to highlight what's really going on. It feels like I have a place to express a bit of what I've been dealing with, what you guys have been dealing with too. So it is a bit of a relief for me, I guess, mentally.
I feel like I'm a little baby musician and I'm trying to kind of break out of my shell, but it's a beautiful process. I honestly, any advice to anyone who's listening, don't pressure yourself too much, but don't stand in your own way.
100%.
You'll never know what works until you try. And if you're just thinking and going through the planning phases and not doing anything, there's no way you can get anywhere if you don't try. So
yeah,
just try. Start somewhere. Everyone has to start somewhere.
I never thought I would get into the podcasting world until I was just kind of, given this opportunity. And then I was given a launch date and I was like, wow, it's do or die. I have to just figure it out.
Yeah.
And that was the best thing ever, because it's just like, you have to do it. You just have to push yourself and don't be afraid of failure. I think failure is the greatest tool for learning and moving forward and getting better.
I was going to say, I'm glad that you mentioned the fans as well, because I feel like we end up forgetting about that a lot. Like, yes, we're like, the whole point is we're creating content so that other people will see it, but then the actual connection with the people who are seeing it, that they're not just like a number of followers, or they're not just like a like on the post. It's like these are real people who are like we're building a relationship with, and they care about our music, and that like we care about them and like want to give these things to them because we're forming this relationship. And I feel like that point is something that a lot of people forget, and I'm really glad that you mentioned that.
No, of course, authentic connection is so important. And yes, like I think it does drive, and it is something that we should always keep in mind. And also for the failure, falling forward is something I've always heard instead of falling backwards. Great, you messed up. Let's try and learn something different. Let's do something different. Let's try something new. It's 100% all necessary.
And that kind of goes into a bit of our next question for you. What does your music making process look like? Because I've talked a lot to other artists about this. Almost every single songwriter has a different way that they start, and I would really love to hear more about yours.
Oh my gosh, this is such an interesting question. So initially I would find loops on Splice and like kind of produce my own beats, put them together. I don't deny that's a great way. I love it. But recently I've been getting into top lining, and mostly because time. Yes, you can do it. You may be great at creating beats. You don't always have to. You can do the other things that you also enjoy.
Yes.
So top lining has been beautiful for me. I also have been able to try out new types of sounds or genres that I feel like I'm drawn to more than what I've been able to create on my own, which is great. The options are limitless. And also I get inspiration from listening to songs as well. So what I do is I'll type in a certain type of beat I'm looking for based off of an artist that I like or a song that I've heard that I want to write something similar to, because I just love it so much. And after hearing the beat, if I start singing a melody over it or think of words for it, immediately it's a song that I start trying to write to see where it can go. And in that process, I'll buy the MP3, download it, put it in my DAW, try and write out maybe a verse and a chorus, record said verse and chorus, and hear it back and see if it has potential to go somewhere. And occasionally for a while, I was trying to post them on TikTok. Big mistake. Only because I was just thinking about this when we have a conversation. Jordi and I were talking earlier, but ironically, when you do that, people want the song like immediately. They're like, release this. Yeah. Is this on Spotify? And I'm like, whoa, I just did this in my bedroom like 45 minutes ago. Like there's nothing there yet. And the pressure to release is so much. So usually asking for feedback is great, but also just knowing you found inspiration in a song, I think is the best way to go about creating one. So yeah, that's my process. I go with top lining now. I think it's a beautiful way to go.
I love that, because actually that's a skill set that I really dove into throughout the pandemic. I started working a lot long distance with producers, and then I ended up moving to LA for like 6 months while we were doing online school. So throughout all of that process, instead of kind of beating myself up about not finishing a production element quickly enough, I was just co-producing or top-lining another producer's work, and that allowed me to just get the ideas out so much faster. And the one thing I really want to emphasize is there is no right way to go about it at all. Because, I mean, Jordi was saying something a little similar in her episode last week, where she was saying she hears a song from an artist she likes and kind of writes a new story over that and then transforms it into something completely different. Yeah. And I love that, because it's a variation of top lining, but then also taking something that exists and transforming it all together to have a unique identity. I also started out producing with Splice because I didn't really know anything about production until college. So I think that's such a great way to start in the producer world. But again, as an artist with so much pressure to consistently release, consistently have stuff ready to go, it can feel like a lot to try to wear every single hat. Yes. So for anyone out there listening who wants to get into this or who's starting out as an independent artist, don't feel the pressure to fill every single role. There's nothing wrong with finding beats online. And I actually teach songwriting lessons as well. I have a couple students, and one of the first assignments I give them is actually to top line a type beat for an artist that they like. And for anyone who doesn't know, top lining basically means writing lyrics and melody over an already produced beat. So I love that answer, Marley. Really cool.
No, yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, I was talking a little bit last week about how like finding songs, I feel like it's exactly a version of that. finding songs that like I already like and writing over that because it gives me structure. And I feel like that's
Yes.
the same as yours. The only reason I do it this way is because then I can't use the beat. So then it forces me to also make a new one right after.
Of
And I
course.
feel like that's a really great way to go. What has your journey as an independent artist looked?
I guess my independent artistry started off with going to probably Frost, meeting people and being inspired to create whilst being in college. And during that time, I didn't really release too much music. I think I only released one song as my first single, Burn, which I had written before moving to Miami, actually. But in that time, I learned the best process for how to maybe market a single. I learned how to navigate the industry. And I decided to go about it was doing social media and releasing music, which I think is a very common route for people now, especially because we have TikTok. It's so big. In that, I decided I was going to move back to Texas after graduating. And I decided to move to the music capital of Texas, which is Austin. And I was hoping that I'd be able to do some gigs, meet more musicians. And I had a whole plan in mind about how I was going to do a music video. And I think that'd be taking my career to the next level, kind of forging my path visually, so people weren't just hearing my songs and maybe seeing me post pictures and videos that weren't related, but actually put a visual brand to my visual songs. And it actually went according to plan. I moved down here. My cousin lived here and he was managing a couple bands. He got me set up at a bar to do gigs, and I was doing gigs maybe once, occasionally twice a month at the Rustic Tap and performing. And there I was able to kind of create my brand. I made my link tree with my little QR codes of like all the different types of social media I had. I created a website, and I started doing dance classes so I could meet people who could help me choreograph for my songs. And like, lo and behold, my choreographer for the first recital I did with them ended up being my choreographer for my music video. Shout out to Taylor. She's amazing. And in that, I was able to meet a stylist at a boat party who was looking for artists to style. So I added her to my team. I met a videographer for the dance company. I added him to my team. And in doing that, I felt like I was able to create the next part of my path towards being, I'm going to say, a fulfilling self-independent artist. Building a team is important. And after that, now I'm just kind of focusing on curating a community on social media, so I have people to form authentic connections with, like we were talking about earlier, and also share just my journey with them. Right now, I'm focusing on the at-home self-creation. I'm just trying to build those relationships, and I'm just trying to write and create within my means. And I'm gigging as a full-time wedding singer. So it's fulfilling. It doesn't take up all my time, and it gives me creative energy to be able to work on my projects. So that's kind of how I've shaped my life as an independent artist.
So you mentioned this a little bit briefly earlier, and we kind of talked about how we got to know you, but we know you transferred into Frost from another school. What led to that decision, and how do you feel overall it's benefit your career?
This is a good question too. So I did community college because, first off, I come from a family that didn't really originate in the suburbs. We moved from Houston to Plano, which is a very suburban area in Texas, and we couldn't afford for me to go to college. I'm the first of all my siblings, so that was a realization I had, and especially because I wanted to do music, I assumed I would be doing choir. So I went to community college and tried to get an associate's. I was one class off, but it doesn't matter now. I have a bachelor's. But I
Period.
got a chance to kind of focus on doing pop and a cappella. I tried opera, and I knew jazz was something I could do. It wasn't my passion. I was very upset that there wasn't a program curated towards what I actually wanted to do. I would have to take alternate routes to get there. So I worked hand in hand with my voice teachers, and everyone was like, "You're gonna get into UNT. You're going to do jazz. It's going to be amazing. You're a shoo-in, yada, yada, yada." And I just had my heart set on possibly just doing that one thing. I couldn't think of anything else. And, one of my voice teachers came up to me and she was like, "Hey, I know you haven't really looked into this, but I found this program where they kind of focus on you and the music you create and how to navigate the industry." And I was like, there's no way this exists. And if it does exist, there's no way I'm going to get into this program. I was like, I'm a baby writer. Like, there's no way. And I auditioned on a whim. I only had 3 originals that I created at that time. And looking back on them, some of them were so cheesy, but I'm so proud of them. They're my babies. And I sent in my application to UNT, my application to and I had my in-person audition for UNT. It went perfect, which is crazy to say. It went perfect. And I remember when I got the letter back that I did not get in. I did not get in. And you want to know why? They told me it was because they felt like with the career goals that I had, I'd be better suited towards a program with different music. They were like, you did great. You were amazing. It's just that we feel like this is not what you want. And I had a hard time hearing that because I just knew that jazz wasn't a set path. It had something already made for it. So within that, I think a couple days later, I got the notification that I had a call back for Frost. And it was like a week or so after I got the letter. It was crazy. And my mom booked a flight with me really quick. We were only there for literally less than a day. It was insane. Showed up. It was insane. I showed up. I did the music theory test, and I think I was the last person in my little group of people to go. And my audition went way over the top, way over the time. I was asking 5 million questions. They had me all of a sudden start playing piano and singing instead of just doing the basic singing with the track. It was insane. And that's what landed me in Frost. I didn't hear back from them, by the way, y'all, until very late. Like I heard way back after everyone else heard back. I think the email got lost or something. But when I found out I got in, it was literally life-changing. It was life-changing. I never imagined going to Miami. I never planned to go to Miami. I never imagined moving out of state. I never imagined learning something I loved in school. So that's what led to me coming to Frost. That's what shaped me going there. Yeah.
Wow. That gave me chills because I remember the nerves I felt when I was auditioning. I was very dead set on either NYU or Berkeley. I ended up getting waitlisted at NYU, but I got into Berkeley in Boston. And of course, Berkeley, was like the creme de la creme of where you want to get into.
Yes.
But my dad last second kind of told me about Frost, and he was like, oh, there's this crazy school. Like they focus on exactly what you want to do. They're like top 5 in contemporary music in the country. You need to audition. And my mom heard Miami, and having lived in Miami in her 20s, she was like, oh no. The first thing out of her mouth was like, we're leaving this one for last, because she knew the minute that I got here, I would just fall in love with it. And that's exactly what happened. I went into the audition. I'm just sharing the audition stories because I think it's so interesting of a concept to share with other people outside of this world what that feeling was. Basically, I show up and I was sorted into the wrong kind of audition. So the videos that I had sent in were very wide in like genre variety. So I had classical piano performance, I had jazz guitar performance, I had my singer-songwriter on piano and guitar, and then I had just like me singing over some like pop tracks. So they just had no idea where to put me. And for Berkeley, I was actually auditioning on an instrumental guitar piece that I had worked on. It was like progressive rock, complicated technically, but I was not fully up to speed with it yet when I had auditioned at Frost. So I was thrown into the mix with this, instrumental guitar audition when in reality I wanted to audition for the songwriter program. So basically, I felt like I completely flubbed my audition. I did not go into it mentally prepared to audition just on instrumental guitar. I was not in the right headspace for it, even though obviously I know the instrument. But then I was like crying outside in the steps at PLF South, and another student found me. She told me what office to go to, like what door to knock on. It ended up being Dean Sanchez's door, and said to explain to him what happened because, of course, he runs the CAM program, which is the Creative American Music Singer-Songwriter minor at Frost. And I knock on the door, and he's on his lunch break, and he goes, hey. And I'm just there, like, clearly just cried my eyes out. I'm like, so, like, XYZ just happened. This student of yours recommended that I go talk to you. And he's like, okay, give me a minute. And maybe 20 minutes go by, he wraps up his lunch, and then he takes the rest of his hour lunch break to give me an audition. And like when I tell you that I owe so much to Dean Sanchez and to this student who I ended up being friends with in Frost later on, it was just like, that was a life-changing moment. And I was in that audition, like, not knowing what to expect. I showed him my portfolio, and then he had me also, like, randomly playing and singing on guitar and piano. He asked me to sing a song in Spanish. I didn't even expect to sing a song in Spanish, but I luckily had just translated one of my English songs into Spanish, and I was able to, like, pull that out of my hat randomly. I firmly believe that when one door closes, another one opens.
Always.
And not getting into NYU like I had wanted, not moving to New York City like I'd always dreamt of, led me down this career path where I started to make bilingual music that I literally never expected to go through. So it gives me chills to hear your story, because it's like, as a young person, your entire hopes and dreams are lying on these people's shoulders, and you're just there like holding your breath, and luckily we were all able to make it.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting thing of how much, like, him taking the rest of his lunch break to actually, like, hear you. I feel like the professors at first really wanted to get to know us as people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's one thing of, like, it's such a smaller program. But, like, I remember in my audition, I think there were, like, 4 people in the room. I don't even know if I remember who everyone was, because I was so stressed out. I think they had also maybe, like, only put me for, like, the maid audition and not cam, and then I went to go change it, and then I ended up in the cam audition. And I remember, like, there was one musicology professor, Dr. Butler, who we all had, who, like, and he's, like, one of the few Black professors at Frost, and, like, I ended up having him later, like, twice. And I remember later on, when I had him as a professor after I got in, he had told me, he was like, yeah, by the way, like, your audition was stellar. And I was like, no one ever gave me feedback during it. Like,
Yeah.
they just, like, asked
Just
questions.
watch and ask yes.
And I remember I thought I bombed my audition.
Oh my
Because,
gosh.
because they asked me so many questions. I was like, oh my god. and I didn't know the answer, because I never had, like, I also, like, took piano when I was a kid, but I didn't have a lot of theory knowledge. And when I started really songwriting, I was songwriting on guitar. And so, like, I know how the keyboard works, and, like, it's easy to see, but on guitar, I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just kind of like, Google says this is a G, so I'm putting this in my song, and this one song that I learned has an A minor, so I guess I'm putting this in my song. And that's kind of how I, like, self-taught guitar for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I started changing up finger positions. I was like, oh, I don't know what this chord is, but it sounds really cool. So I would write it down as, like, B minor, question mark, question mark, question mark. Because I was like, I don't think it's a B minor, but it kind of sounds like a B minor. And that's how I had them in my notes. And so when I showed up to this audition, like, and I played this couple songs on my guitar, they started asking me, like, okay, what key are you in, by the way? And I was like,
They always, yes.
I was like,
Yeah.
well, I have a capo on. And they were like, uh-huh. And I was like, and I put a capo on the 2nd fret. So I think it was in C, but now I don't know.
This is a
The
capo.
It's like, how at that point I've been like, I can't tell you. The capo's on now. I don't know what the answer is.
Exactly. I was like, I was like,
Yeah.
well, the first chord is this, so maybe it's in that key. And they were like, not quite. I was like, oh. And then later I found out they were jazz chords. And I was like, I don't know what extensions and things like that are, but, like, I was already using them. And, like, I knew that, like, sonically there were things that I wanted to have, and just kind of, like, figuring them out. But at the time, like, their questions were just to try to teach me a little bit, but they didn't actually answer them. They were just trying to see how my brain worked.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I realized after that, after talking to Dr. Butler, when I finally had him in a class, he was like, yeah, I remember you. Like, your audition was stellar. It was cool to, like, see what your process was like.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can tell me this day of, I have anxiety.
I love this whole conversation. I do want to move on to a quick little break. And then in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about higher education, which we definitely got into during our interview. And before that, we're also going to play a segment of Marley's song, Sheesh, which has just been released on all streaming platforms, and her music video on YouTube. So hang in there, and we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Marley from Houston, Texas. Here's my latest single, Sheesh. I hope you enjoy it, and don't forget, keep it Jasmine.
Hating cause they know I got it made. Ain't got no 9 to 5, but I'm still getting paid. One day I'll make a meal, throw it feet up, watch it rain. The shit up on my throne, just cause I'm a queen. Ask my man, I can't help it that I'm bougie. Look like I came off a TV set or a movie, just to say damn. So sad like it's confetti. Big hair, big hoops, big money. I'm Texas made, don't test me, don't test me. I come a mess with baby, you don't wanna mess with me. Buy a mix with ice, yeah, that's my favorite recipe. I gotta be honest, I know you want this. Stay on, I'm saying, then leave, I'm saying, damn. She so sass like it's confetti. Big hair, big hoops, big money. I'm Texas made, don't test me, don't test me. I come a mess with baby, you don't wanna mess with me. Buy a mix with ice, yeah, that's my favorite recipe. I gotta be honest, I know you want this. Stay on, I'm saying, then leave, I'm saying, damn. Oh no,
Okay, so I want to get right back into it and talk a bit more about the conversation we were having surrounding higher education, non-traditional career paths, and kind of this artist to content creator pipeline, just continuing that conversation. So one of the things that I hear come up a lot in the music and arts world are the pros and cons of college and higher education as a whole. I know that college is not for everyone. I guess I want to go a bit back and forth on the pros and cons. I think for me, the main pros were expanding the knowledge that I already had, like we were discussing, and building a community of like-minded people and artists. One thing that stuck out to me that the deans told us during freshman orientation was, look around the room right now. These people will be your peers in this industry for the rest of your life, given that they stay in it. And I already find that to be true tenfold. I mean, we have people that we graduated with who've blown up on TikTok. We have people we graduated with that work for Apple or that work for sound studios as audio engineers. And this is only the beginning of all of our journeys as artists. So I think already this community has begun paying us back tenfold. But what are your thoughts on this, both of you guys, about the pros and cons from what you've experienced?
Is it okay if I start? Because
Yeah.
I feel so strongly about this. I want to say something so controversial. Well, is it controversial? I'm going to be very honest, and people have asked me this question many times in my DMs. I don't think I needed to go to Frost to get to where I am right now. Now, yes, it was an amazing experience, and I learned so much. But what I really learned is that the whole time I was capable, and I didn't need a piece of paper to tell me that. That was the first thing. The second thing, I definitely agree with community. I don't know where I would have been without meeting you all. So it was more so expanding the knowledge that I had, and the skills that I got from it enabled me to apply to like a 9-to-5. I worked for YouTube Music temporarily, and I had the skill set to do so from a class I took my senior year. So thank God for that, But at the same time, I ended up quitting said job because it wasn't enabling me to go on the path I wanted to go on.
I think that's a really important part to mention as well. I think especially like as a Black woman and like trying to get higher education and trying to get hired and things like that, like remembering that like you are capable of these things and you don't need a piece of paper to tell you that, I think is super important. Like, I feel like for our industry, going to college is out of the norm. And
yes, they all quit.
Most people drop out or didn't go in the first place, right? I can't tell you how many artists and like producers in particular I really look up to. I'll watch their interviews and they're like, yeah, I started because I was 16 and I like left school one day and I went to New York and like I found this guy and he knew Jay-Z and then I started doing this.
Yes, like, I just completely
always started with like they were in trouble. Like they were doing things they shouldn't be doing and their parents were disappointed in them, and then long story short, they worked with Rihanna and it's like I need the in between. But I feel like that's such a norm for the industry, and I feel like for us, I'm glad that we had time to incubate. I'm so grateful that we got to be young and go through college and be in our 20s. Like, yes, granted, I got student loans because of it, but like I'm glad at least that like I kind of had to like stay put for 4 years.
Something I learned now as an adult out of college is what I really needed was structure. I needed a path. So when my old school family, who just saw that I was going to college, could understand that I was working towards a degree, but I still want to do what I want to do with my career. And it was kind of for me like I did what was expected, but I did it on my own terms. Now I'm going to pursue my passion in my career. But that structure was needed. I kind of feel like now outside of college, I kind of still long for it. No, I don't miss the 8 to 11 p.m. classes on Wednesdays, but I do miss, I know, right? But I do miss like forcing yourself to finish a song in a week for a songwriting class, or hopping in the studio because you have to like record a demo for a class or finish mixing, yada, yada, yada. I miss all of that. And I feel like it did garner the skill sets that we do use now as adults, as adult musicians. But I think structure was necessary. So I truly, yes, Jordi. Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a
To
really
jump in
important
on
part of it.
that, I think like the structure was the thing that I missed the most as well. Besides the community and the friendships and the fun element of it, of course, that's, logically what I would miss, the fun. But I think what I missed that I needed still was structure. And, getting diagnosed with ADHD basically a year post-college was extremely eye-opening for me. It was kind of something I always knew was there, but then it allowed me to understand why I thrived so much in that environment, why I felt so fulfilled, so happy, so successful within that kind of insular community, within that routine. And then once I graduated, I kind of felt like I was spat out into the world with no direction. Like, what's going on?
Yes.
What do I do? I was genuinely shell-shocked for like at least 6 to 8 months. Like, it was extremely difficult. I also think that's something people don't talk about enough. The immense culture shock of going from being a student for 16 years and then all of a sudden, oh, you don't have to go anywhere the next day. Maybe you got a job. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you're moving back in with your parents. Maybe you're in a new city. Maybe you're moving in with a partner. Maybe you're just not doing any of those things and you're incredibly lost, because I think all of us went in different directions, but we all felt so lost those first 6 to 8 months.
Yes.
I still do.
And still same.
I
But
still
it's
do.
like that structure is something that I longed for and that I still long for. But then Jordi and I started talking about, how do we provide this for ourselves? And so I started stacking all the lessons that I teach on one day. And then I'm podcasting on this day. And then I'm recording content on this day. And really breaking it down like that has completely transformed how I look at myself and my career and my progress. So I completely agree. I think college gave me a very necessary structure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think that's a super important part of it as well.
I think in a way, it's also scary knowing that you really are forging your own path right now. That's a lot of pressure, especially when you have high like aspirations. Like, for us to go this far into the process really shows that we're serious, but it's really scary whenever you really are being thrown to the world and it's like, we'll still fulfill all these things, but also fulfill what you're trying to do career-wise. And you have to create what's in your head into like, you have to put into fruition. And that's so much pressure. Admittedly enough, I did end up joining or signing up for a program that was more so just to keep me on track. Where I would sit like with maybe 20 other girls on Zoom and we would all bring our stuff and talk about it with coaches they had in the program and things like that. And I finally quit it 2 weeks ago. I've been out of college for 2 years. I feel like I needed that because I finally quit because I finally had it. I had the structure that I needed in my life. I knew what I wanted to do. I didn't need a crutch to lean on. I really just was looking for community. And I feel like now I can mentally forge my own path. But honestly, if anybody out there is really struggling with this, don't feel pressure to figure it all out right now. Rely on the people you meet. They're all going through it with you.
Can we talk a little bit about like what that has looked like for you?
So when I moved to Austin, got a job at YouTube Music within the first 3-4 months of living here. Beautiful. Moved in with my partner. So that meant I was focused on doing a 9-to-5, still creating music, maintaining my relationship in this 1-bedroom apartment. And I worked for this company remote for 3 to 4 months until I found out we were going to in person. And my entire team decided, almost entire team, that we wanted to unionize and that we needed to fight for our right to be able to work remotely because they felt like there was no real need to come in person. So they didn't agree to our terms and we striked. And I'd only been there for 4-5 months, just got off of my training wheels. So I was kind of in awe at the situation. I ended up only working for them maybe a month later and then deciding to quit because I got an offer to do wedding gigs. And also, I didn't like how we were being treated. It was also getting in the way of my creative life. And they continued to try and fight for their kind of rights as a team up until this past March when they were at a court hearing trying to, I don't know what their goal was, but they were at a court hearing and they were speaking and they literally found out that they had gotten laid off while they were at court.
Wow.
My entire YouTube music team, we were all musicians.
Oh my gosh,
All
that's
musicians.
horrible.
It was terrifying to watch. I saw the post and I was like, I know it's a year later and I had to quit. And like, I was a newbie. So me, throwing my entire job away to do that, to stand for people who were pregnant and lived with like 6 people and physically couldn't come into work and all types of stuff. Like it was so many things, but to see my fellow musicians experience something like that, especially from a big corporation, was hard. And it's not, this isn't like LA or Miami or New York. Like the prices are different here, but Austin is still a big city and inflation is still really bad. And it's hard to afford anything. So finding out that they didn't even have a chance to save up money probably during that time at all to be able to just get laid off like that's just absolutely insane. And if it weren't for my partner that I have now and the job he works, I actually would not be able to live here. I had to raise $5,000 and I actually paid $1,500 over plus $2,000 out of my own pockets. So that's $3,500 that I spent on my own after not having a job, not able to create any savings.
Yeah.
I've been funding all my own stuff, but at the same time, I see it as an investment in my future self. And I was supported by my loved ones in my community. And there were so many moments where, I'm not going to lie to you guys, I had no faith that it was going to complete like the fundraiser. And I got lucky that I have so many people who love me. It's no joke out here. Even working these gigs I'm doing, I'm not making enough money to live. There aren't enough gigs. There isn't enough that I could do. So I don't know. I want to say be kind to yourself.
Amazing.
I'm so proud of you, first of all. And thank you for sharing the backstory a bit more of what's been involved throughout your journey, because I think that's something that's so relatable to anyone pursuing a creative career. Just non-traditional careers in general, there is so much of an upfront investment cost that you have to believe in yourself enough to make that sacrifice. I think it's really apparent in the quality of your latest music video that you really poured your heart and soul into it, and not a single dollar went to waste.
Yeah.
So
it looks
congratulations
gorgeous
on that.
Can you talk a little bit more about it?
Of course, yes.
Yeah.
The music video process was a 1.5 year long plan of, again, creating something out of nothing. And I did have help. My stylist, Emily, she goes by Woad and Weld Styling. She helped me come up with a lot of my looks. She really pushed me out of my creative box to see what my aesthetic and brand was. And with Sheesh, it just happened to be a song that I could see a music video being put to. And I never imagined it would turn out the way it did. I'm very proud of it. I think with the choreography and the creative vision of the videographer we had, I feel like my actual aesthetic and brand was able to shine through. Even on the day of the shoot, I was so pressed, but I was also having the time of my life. I had been waiting for this moment for so long, and I felt so supported by the people that were there with me, helping my dream kind of come true. And when we finished that last take, the world was lifted off of my shoulders. I don't think people understand what it's like to create something like that. To find all the people, to find the hairstylists, to buy and find the right types of wigs, to get them properly plucked, to find the right accessories and the right outfits for every dancer, versus booking dance studios for rehearsals, finding time for the choreographer to be able to actually meet, finding the right venue and the right amount of hours and having enough money, finding all the food, creating all the contracts so you don't possibly get screwed over in the future. I'm not going to lie, I did learn a lot from this that I wouldn't do again. It was definitely a life lesson. My videographer and I, we had a couple of issues on the editing side. He's great overall. I'm really grateful of what he came up with, but I learned that you always put down a deposit and you don't pay fully until everything is completed. I was trying to be kind and pay when I had the money because I was afraid I wouldn't have the money. But I did, and I regret it because getting the project back and getting it edited is such a vulnerable thing. You know, we as artists want to have a really big hand in the creation and how people view us. So of course we want the clips to come out a certain type of way and sit there and say, no, I don't like this. Yes, I enjoy this. We had to do it remotely. So things kind of got lost in translation. It was difficult. And I ended up having to just kind of pry my project out of him to get him to take me seriously as a young woman and a new artist. And the amount of money I was able to, I paid him his full rate, but I still felt like I was being treated like a child. Like he wasn't taking my career or me seriously when it came to the time frame and timeline of my project. So it was very difficult. I'm not going to lie, with my anxiety, my imposter syndrome, and still just being on the stress kick of doing this entire project. It really messed with me mentally throughout the holidays, all the way up until, let's say, maybe a couple of weeks ago when I finally released the video. It was hard. I felt like there were so many things I could have done better. And it's so crazy to see the result of that and not know what led up to all of that being created.
Yeah.
So the video, it's beautiful. I love it. I can't wait to do something else. But I am going to say that was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And I've done some crazy, weird, hard stuff. And I think that takes the cake. But it's like my baby. I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I literally held on to that thing for 9 months. I'm proud of it. Yeah.
I relate to a lot of what you said, especially with the coordinating choreography, rehearsal spaces, and especially if you're traveling into a new place and you have to coordinate all of that. It's really, really difficult. I mean, I had a video once that I shot in LA, my When It's All Done music video, and it had a similar setting to the Sheesh music video. It was like in a sound stage, and then we had different lighting, different backdrops, like all in one space. And one of the dancers called out sick that morning. So the choreographer, who was also sick, had to step in and then dance in the video just to have enough people. So it was like one of those do or die, and she was a very great team player and like just hopped in the ring. But it's hard, and people are, flaked.
Yeah.
So you can't always count on what you expected to happen to actually happen. And I wanted to throw it over to Jordi real quick because she actually just filmed her first music video literally yesterday. So I'm really excited for her to share a little bit about that because we played a clip of her song, J'adore, last week.
Yeah. Filming this music video was so much fun. It was so tiring. And like I've done stuff like it before. Like I did music camps and programs like that growing up. So it was a lot of like people my age and us trying to figure it out for a really long time, like of my journey of being an artist. But this was the first time I was able to like have like creative control and like make a lot of decisions and put it together, and like finding like my friends who would be assistants and like just investing in myself in that way too. And like the videographer, who was also like co-directing and it's also going to be editing, Mike, was absolutely amazing on set.
Shout out Mike Nietzsche, director Mike Nietzsche on Instagram.
Mike was incredible.
Amazing. He's co-produced with my mom all of my music videos, and he is an absolute gem to work with. So shout out Mike Nietzsche.
Yeah, and thank you, Jasmine, for the connect on that, because he's a gem. And like I got to like meet with him and talk to him, and like I'm very precious about my music, and like I don't like I was such a lone wolf for a really long time, and like letting other people into my process has always been really difficult for me. But he made it so easy. Like even at our first meeting, I was like, "Oh, you're chill. Like this is comfortable." Like he's like I feel like he's just a good person, and he was like fun to talk to, and like asked me questions about like my vision and like what I wanted. And like I don't have a manager or anything like that. Like I don't have a team. Like I just started building a team of like friends and people I've met.
Yeah.
And like one of my friends, Brianna, has been helping me with like marketing and like creative strategies and branding and things like that. So this is kind of my first real like coordinated step into my artist and taking myself seriously. And I feel like I had such a hard time with it for so long. Coming from a Caribbean family, not a creative family, like getting other people to take my music seriously was a really hard thing. So kind of like how you mentioned earlier, Marley, about like trying to be like, I got a degree, like I'm working towards this, but I can do it on my own terms.
Yeah.
And this is kind of another example of that. Like, especially when you have a family like that, and like I come from a family of like Haitian immigrants, and like they've been here for a really long time, but for them, stability is everything.
Yes.
And being able to make decisions that are like, I know what I'm doing, like I'm a smart person, I care about what I'm doing, but I can do this in concrete ways, I think has been a really big part of that. Like using your music as a brand and things like that is such an important part of it.
My stylist literally sat down with me and like, you know, I discovered that I was bisexual back in like 2021. And I didn't want to do some crazy big thing where I was like, I'm going to just yada. But I wanted that to be a heavy part of my brand without throwing it in people's faces. And I feel like when we did the lighting for the music video and the colors, every single time there was a scene, the goal was to fit blue, purple, or pink in there somewhere. And I don't know, I think that's the part of the video that makes me feel like it's so creatively authentic for me. I feel so radiant every single time someone tells me they really saw my personality, my brand shine through. That was my only goal with this, and that makes me so happy to hear. So thank you.
I know that feeling very well, and I look back on some of my older videos because I've been making music videos more or less since 2016. I remember in the first one, like the nerves that I felt and not really knowing what to expect. And then, you know, looking back on that, how much my style has evolved. I also wanted to talk about this trend of influencers or TikTok creators becoming artists. So, for example, like Dixie D'Amelio, Addison Rae, that kind of vibe. What are your thoughts on that as independent artists? I have some thoughts.
I don't know if you guys have seen most recently, like the resurgence, or just talking about like the main TikTokers from like 2019. So like Addison Rae got on the remix of a Charlie XCX song called Von Dutch. The music video for that was amazing. The remix had Addison Rae on it, and she does this like high-pitched scream, and they have the video of her doing it in the studio. And everyone immediately was like, it's giving Mother. Like, Addison Rae has come back to step on the pop girlies and that. Like, and we hadn't really seen her in a while.
Yeah.
Like, I know she had done the, like, what was it? He's All That? The, like, remake
that
of the
movie,
She's All that movie from, like, the 90s or 2000s. And she had been friends with, like, the Kardashians for a second, but she wasn't really in the, like, pop culture sphere for a while. And then this one song has immediately like boosted her like engagement. She's rebranded herself, like since I've checked in. Her whole page is very much giving like grunge pop vibes. Like it's a little grittier, it's a little dirtier, it's a little sparkly, like it's giving a little bit Kesha. And I feel like Charlie XCX also fits in that kind of realm of like grunge pop that I really like.
Yeah.
So it's been interesting to
since the rise in popularity of TikTok and Reels and things like that, because the only way to really gain visibility is through social media. And another thing, the formula of labels picking up artists that they want to develop. For example, Rihanna or Taylor Swift getting signed very young and then coming out with music 4 or 5 years after that. That does not happen anymore unless it's a very small artist that usually doesn't get their project put out. If you are signing to a label and it's going to be beneficial to you, you have to have the numbers already set in stone. And it's like, how do you get there? And that's, I think, what all of us have been trying to work towards. So in that respect, I think definitely artists have to be content creators. My 2 cents come in when it's the TikTok content creators becoming artists because they feel like it is a quick, cheap, easy way to extend their brand life. That is something that genuinely bothers me. For example, with Dixie D'Amelio, maybe Addison Rae is a different story. I haven't heard the song. We'll see what she does next, right? Like, you can give someone the benefit of the doubt. But Dixie D'Amelio, for example, has said that she needs to marry rich because she does not want to work anymore. It's too hard. And not only did she catapult to fame off the back of her sister's brand, who is an actual dancer, she made a few random, very odd, like pop singles, I guess, that were released widely on social media and circulated, but did not necessarily get positive feedback. And I think it's something to be said about this like soulless wave of TikTok focused music that has come about because of the need of feeding this social media beast constantly. For example, labels are now looking towards what is the quickest way to make something go viral instead of what is the next artist we can sign that has longevity, creative integrity, and a vision as an artist. That's not what's being signed most of the time. What's being signed is an individual, whether they have musical background or passion or not, who has a large following that they can easily push through the next viral song that will be forgotten about in 16 months. And that is where, like, I kind of see a problem happening.
Yes. Okay. First off, snaps to everything that was said, because I 100% recorded a whole TikTok reacting to, remember the, oh my God, no one come for me, the popcorn girl. And I think she released the song. You remember like the girl who was doing the NPC type of reactions?
Yeah, she released a song?
I think she released a song. And it had the popcorn thing in it too. Like she released a song with that. And first off, the market's already very oversaturated. We're all trying our best. With technology at our fingertips, it's so easy to release music. Even getting editorial playlists or just getting playlisted in general is extremely difficult. A lot of people have spent so much of their time and their lives doing this, and they do it for the creativity of the music, not just to make money in a simple way. I do understand the want to make money off of being a singer if you've already kind of solidified your brand as a content creator, but it feels insulting to put out work that hasn't been refined. You have enough money and probably enough connections to take the time to go and sit down and better hone those skills if that's actually the route. Like you became a content creator, but you really want to be a singer. Okay, that's great. Go take the time to do those things, but don't just do it and just, it kills me to know that that's taking up all of the space. You could spend 10 hours on a video and it does not matter if you don't get the right engagement, if you don't get enough likes, enough anything. And like, it breaks my heart to see it. And it's so discouraging. If you can find someone that you can invest in who's going to be able to have, like you said, longevity, I think that just makes more sense solidly like right now. But I do get in a viral day and age. It's just hard.
They do not see them as art. They see them as a quick way to have a return on investment almost immediately and almost for free. Even if it's rage bait at this point, even if someone sees this content creator and they're like, why are they putting out music? And then everyone rushes to check it out because they have such a huge following. There is this need to fill this digital space, and these huge corporations have the assets, they have the means to push out their music and to have these relationships with TikTok and with Spotify in ways that independent artists absolutely do not have access to push their artists out first. If you look at what the Billboard top 50, top 100 are, or the TikTok viral top 50, top 100, you will notice that the top 20 slots at least are almost exclusively either influencers or artists that are signed by major labels. Of course, we would love to be that artist on the top 5, right?
Yeah.
I'm not mad about that. I actually think it's important to have that level of validation and distinction for when someone's putting out great work. But then it does feel like a slap in the face when it's not great work, when it's just something to pass the time and feed very short attention spans on a social media app. I think the element of creating good, real music from real musicians, real artists with a vision has gone out the window.
Even though it's oversaturated with content creators turned artists, I think the fans can tell what feels authentic, and I see it in the comment section, and you can see people be like, this is a piece of crap. Like,
I think if there was a way for independent artists to have a more direct relationship with Spotify outside of working through a third-party distributor, almost as if you yourself are your own label, immediately kind of change the public's perception of how those corporations are taking advantage of artists. Because A, we're not getting paid fairly based on how much money we make for those companies that are profiting off of our work that we actually have to pay to release on those platforms to then not make money off of.
Yeah.
First of all. Second of all, I think we deserve it. I think that we, as artists who pour our heart and souls into our careers, deserve to have an equal chance. It's a very slow and long uphill battle, but don't lose hope. I think that we are going to be the ones to change the industry for the better. All right, guys, I want to go into a quick little break before we go into our last segment. All right, moving right into our last segment, I have a couple questions for you guys. One question from my story poll was actually directed at me, and I will be answering it. Have you noticed a change in people's motives around you since you started versus now? I think I have seen perhaps a little bit more of people reaching out to me, kind of like, hey, can you do XYZ for me? Or, hey, remember me? Like, you know, I haven't talked to you in 8 years. Honestly, I don't like to just shut people down off the bat. I will say, hey, like, that's so sick. Thank you for sharing this with me. I definitely want to have that rapport with people, but sometimes you can kind of tell that it's not really out of curiosity or genuine interest in your project. It's more so about digging and finding out, like, if you're naive or vulnerable and if there's a way that they can take advantage of you. And if I feel like if someone is more excited about my career than they are about getting to know me as an individual, that is a huge red flag for me.
Yeah.
We have one more question here, and it actually pertains to last week's episode, so thank you guys for tuning in. This question is related to our conversation around body image. How did we move forward from our own negative perceptions of our body image? Mm-hmm. Like, what was that process like for us? It was a lot of unlearning from the subliminal messaging that I've been getting all my life in media, even from family members, from friends, from peers, from teachers. There's always someone that has something to say about your body when you were a kid growing up. I think just leaning into who I wanted to be and what I felt comfortable with was the most important.
For me, what unlearning looked like was totally redoing my social media. I think for me, like, I've been a bigger person my whole life, and I've had this kind of imaging my whole life, and I had to actively get rid of it, like full recon on my social media. And Instagram, I followed a bunch of curve models. I remember I might have talked about this before, but like Barbie Ferreira was one of the first plus size models that I found. It was her and Ashley Graham. And Barbie Ferreira had this Vogue show where she brought all of her curve model friends onto it, and I followed all of them. And I just started like curating my feed that way. But I think what it really comes down to is being able to look at yourself, know that you have value. If you are here and you are alive, you have value, no matter what you look like. And I think being able to find examples of people who look like you and know that they are beautiful and know that they would probably think that you're beautiful too. And therapy. I'll always say yes to therapy. It is always a good thing to be able to talk to a therapist because it's a really huge mental health crisis right now. So if that's something you're struggling with, definitely talk to somebody, curate your feed, and find new ways to love yourself.
I love that. And thank you for reminding me to schedule my therapy appointment this week. I think that was one of the best things I did for myself in 2023. Actively taking accountability for the fact that I had agency in bettering it for myself. And mental health is something that I want to dive into a lot more in future episodes. So I love that we started that conversation here. All right, guys, that is our second episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Once again, this is the Jasmine Ortiz Show with my wonderful co-host, Jordi Polycarpe. Thank you guys so much.